Hello, marketers. Welcome back. We are going to talk about comparative scaling techniques today. In the previous video for this chapter, we talked about just what is scaling, the primary scales of measurement. And I wanted to make a separate video just for studying purposes so you can come back to whichever one and easily find what you're looking for studying purposes. So this video is on the comparative scaling techniques in chapter 8. Comparative scales allow us to make direct comparison of our stimulus objects. Okay, these data has to be interpreted in relative terms and have only ordinal or rank order properties. Only ordinal or rank order properties. In non-comparative scales, each object is scaled independently of everything else in the set. So the resulting data are usually interval or ratio scaled. And we'll see some examples, and this will make much more sense as you see those examples. Why do we like comparative scales? We like comparative scales because we can see small differences. There are known reference points for all respondents, and they're easy to understand and apply. We don't like them because sometimes there's an ordinal nature to the data, so there's less comparison that we can conduct, less statistical tests. And a lot of times we find that there's less generalizability. It's harder to generalize the results from one object to another. So the first type we're going to talk about is paired comparison scaling. In this case, our participant is presented with two objects. So let's go back to comparing advertisements for a nonprofit. So we're, instead of looking at doing an experiment, this time we're going to put it in a survey. So perhaps the respondent is asked to look at both of the advertisements and select which one they like the most, or other criteria. Which one is most compelling? Which one is most exciting? Which one is the most sincere? We could have a variety of things we're asking about. Pick which one you like better on this particular characteristic. This is the most common of all the comparative scaling techniques that we are going to talk about today. So let's look at an example. In this case, we are looking at shampoo brands. So we would give in some instructions to the person taking the survey and say, we're going to present you with 10 pairs of shampoo bottles. For each pair, please pick which one of the two brands you would prefer to use for personal use. Okay, so you would look at all the different possibilities: Zermatt versus Finesse, Zermatt versus Vidal, Zermatt versus Head and Shoulders, Zermatt versus Perk. Then we'd have Finesse versus Vidal, Finesse versus Head and Shoulders, and so on and so forth. And for each of those pairs, the respondent is going to select one. So that leaves us with this. When we compare Zermatt to Finesse, we have here a 1 in a particular box, meaning that the brand in the column was preferred over the brand in the row. So Zermatt was preferred over Finesse. Zermatt was preferred over Vidal Sassoon. It was not preferred over Head and Shoulders, but it was preferred over Pert. So we can look at the number of times it was preferred overall. So we see that Vidal Sassoon preferred over nothing. Okay. Head and Shoulders preferred over everything. And some of them, we have the different ones in between. Paired comparison selling is also used in taste testing, this paired comparison. A consumer will taste two different products and select the one that they think tastes the best. Okay. Usually this is done in private. You don't have other people around you influencing, other potential participants around influencing a selection. And we need, especially in taste testing, at least 1,000 people to taste test and pick which one they like the best. What we have found is that sometimes this is not as effective as we would like it to be. In the 80s, Coca-Cola did this blind taste testing, Coke versus Pepsi. And it was blind taste tests. Oftentimes people would pick Pepsi because it's a little bit sweeter. And so Coca-Cola thought, oh, well, we must need to develop something that is equivalent to Pepsi. So they developed New Coke. They brought out New Coke and they tested New Coke versus Pepsi. In those blind taste tests where a consumer would taste both products and then pick which one they liked the best, the product for New Coke was heavily favored. People really thought it was awesome. But because of the image and the brand reputation of Coca-Cola, people did not end up purchasing the New Coke, and they ended up bringing regular Coke, the old version of Coke, back. Okay, so you do have to be cautious with these blind taste tests where you think that imagery or brand reputation or identification with the brand might be important factors. The next comparison scaling technique we have is a rank order scaling. Here, respondents are presented with several objects at the same time, not just two. It would typically be 3 or more, and then you have to rank or order them according to some criterion. Which department store has the best customer service? Rate them from 1 being the best to 7 being the worst. So it's possible that the respondent could actually dislike all of the choices that you give them, but they still have to put them in order. So you can't necessarily assume that the one that they picked as the best on that criterion is one that they really would prefer or like. So for example, we might have a toothpaste study that we're running, and we give consumers a variety of brands and ask them to rank them in order of preference. The one they like the most would be number 1, and so on and so forth. Next, we have constant sum scaling. Here, respondents allocate some sum of units, okay? So 100 points to attributes of a product to tell us which are the most important. You have 100 points. Is it price? Is it brand name? Is it a feature that it has? Is it packaging? Is it where you can buy it? Maybe you have 4 or 5, 3 different things they can choose from, but they're not selecting one as the most important. They're giving you an idea on this a scale of 100. So maybe they say that 50 points for price, 10 points for brand, 10 points for retailer they can buy it at, and 30 points for the new feature that you brought out. It is possible that a consumer could give one of those categories 0 if they find it completely unimportant. Another way we see this a lot is if you do a group project, sometimes a professor will say, out of 100 points or 100 percentage points, you need to allocate each group member a percentage of points based on how much work they did and how much they contributed to the project. The total must be 100%. Here's an example. Okay, so we have soaps. They say, please allocate 100 points among the attributes so that your allocation reflects the importance of each attribute. Right? So we have average responses of 3 segments. We have the different attributes. Right? And on average, the first group of people said that the most important thing was price at 53 points. So much more important than everything else. And second, coming in way down there, was cleaning power. What they found was the least important was lather in that segment 1. Now you see different groups of people may answer differently, but in that segment 1, that's what we found. So those are the these are the main types of comparative scaling techniques. We'll go all the way back here to our little chart. So we talked about paired comparison, rank order, and constant sum in this video. In the next video, we will talk about non-comparative scales, which are continuous rating and itemized rating scales. So we'll talk about all of those different types next time. Thanks, everyone, and have a fantastic day.